It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, December 5th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is wondering what's the right strategy to beat the Colorado Avalanche.
The rest of the league wants to know.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and welcome to Locked On Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. Russ, before we dig into that preview of the big Sunday matchup against the Colorado Avalanche, we're going to also look ahead to the rest of the remainder of the homestand because it's a pretty tough stretch of games and what the right strategy should be around it. We do have to talk about the latest with Cam York. We learned at practice yesterday he's day to day, which is good to hear. You know, it's encouraging that it doesn't seem to be something serious, but as we know with injuries, things can change. We don't really know, but the good news is we do have until Sunday for him to kind of rest up a little bit, and maybe they can evaluate and see what's going on there. So there isn't like an imminent game to worry about.
Well, I mean, if it's a concussion, it definitely could run past it. If it's just a sore shoulder, then it might be okay. So we don't know.
That's the mystery of the upper body injury, correct?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and we really don't know. I went back and looked, and I couldn't really tell.
Right. You just don't know based on that. So I certainly hope it's not a concussion, at least if it's something, more basic physical. It's something that's a little bit more predictable and more, regimented in terms of how you come back from it. But it is hard to say currently what the plan is for the Flyers on the blue line here. We couldn't get as big of a tell in practice yesterday because Travis Sanheim was out for a maintenance day. He's a little banged up as well. We kind of know that based on how he's been playing recently, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little while since he's, had great games, and people had, been asking me about it online, and I said, yeah, his game's tailed off a bit, so it kind of checks out with that.
Yeah, again, I think, having this little bit of extra time here is good for everybody in a lot of ways. There is a downside to it, which we'll get into, but I think overall it's a good thing for the Flyers at this moment. Looking at the forward lines that they had at practice, I think, they're continuing to do the kind of the setup that they had in the game against Buffalo. And I think it's good to stick with that, except the one difference here is rotating Grunstrom in instead of Delorier, because obviously you are not putting Delorier in against the Colorado Avalanche.
No, with the speed factor and everything, that's a smart move.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think that the Flyers are at least, doing the right thing here in terms of dealing with the absence of Tyson Forster.
Yeah.
We'll see if they decide to make any additional moves. Obviously, the Cam York injury will affect things on the blue line. We talked yesterday, if you haven't listened yet, to our discussion about Rasmus Ristolainen and his potential return and where he might fit in and how that affects that whole logjam. Well, Cam York being out for any stretch would also affect that logjam and what they might do here. And again, without having Sanheim in practice, there weren't really any definitive pairings to glean from here. And even Nick Delorier was kind of paired up with Zamula on the blue line side of things just to even numbers out. It appears. So that was a little difficult. The other big thing that was discussed after practice yesterday was Matvei Michkov. And there were a lot of really pointed questions asked by beat writers who were there. And they talked a lot about how he's being coached, right? And I think
Uh-huh.
Rick Tocchet is being very deliberate, very careful about how he talks about Michkov's game. I think that he's been overall very selective when he chooses to criticize Michkov's game
Mhm.
versus hold back a little bit. I feel like he's in a little bit of a hold back mode right now in terms of being publicly critical of his game because they seem to, based on what he's saying, have been in a little bit of a transitional period in terms of how they're coaching him. That he said essentially that they felt like early on they probably overwhelmed him with too much information coming from multiple directions. And now they realize it's more of a one-on-one situation that he needs to be coached one-on-one. So that's kind of how they're approaching it. And he specifically said, the last 3 weeks, that's what they've been doing. They don't want to overcoach him here. And I think there's an upside and a downside to that. And we're going to see how it plays out in terms of
Well, I mean, so far it's not been playing out great. So, as an example, like he's played a lot of pro hockey. This is not like a green guy coming into the league. He's played a fair amount of pro hockey, not counting just the NHL. So he went from 0.32 goals a game to 0.30. He went from 0.78 points per game to 0.62 and went from 4.48 shots per game to 3.65. Now, the easy answer for me is if I'm coaching him, I'm like, go back to your old self and shoot as much as possible. But he's not doing that. And they're not telling him to do that. And so, like, if he doesn't shoot a lot, he's not going to score as much. And he's not going to get as many rebounds for his teammates. And so, like, you're not using him the right way. It doesn't matter. All this other stuff, all this next level stuff, you didn't need to do with him. All you needed to do is say, be a little more responsible and don't take bad penalties. And show they definitely did way too much with him. And now they've taken away from his game. And I don't know if they're going to add it back in this season. And if they didn't, then next year you're starting from scratch.
Yeah, I think, there's room to turn this around. I really, truly think
Of course there
there is.
is. I mean, but the less coaching, the better. That's what I'm basically saying with this
Yeah,
kind
and
of
I
player.
think they recognize that. And that's the thing is that they've pulled back and, like I said, they're working on one thing with him at a time. They're having one coach work with him at a time and kind of pull it back and get a little bit more basic. I think the one thing that he's done very, very well, I mean, he's done more things, but the one thing that's noticeably been a good thing in his game is how he's behaved net front, that he's
Mhm.
getting to that open spot net front. And he's been there multiple times over the past couple of weeks when goals wound up going in that he didn't need to tip in,
Mhm.
but he was in the right spot to get a rebound or to redirect. And then he's gotten a couple goals himself as well. And I think that is a very good starting building block here. We saw him
I mean,
working
but he's not
yesterday in
behind the net
practice.
enough still. He is getting net front a little
No,
more or less 2 or
true.
3 games. He's not doing that. So he's not as
But we
dangerous.
see him working on certain patterns and certain elements of the system one at a time.
And what
And
about where
I'm
they
not
put him
saying
on the
he's
power
there
play?
yet.
No, but what about where they put him on the power play? He's one of your best power play guys, has the
I
most
understand all
talent.
of that. I understand
No, but
everything
do
you're
they
saying.
understand it? I don't know if they understand it because they're using Travis Sanheim on the power play, who hasn't scored a power play goal since 2019. They're using Michkov wrong on the power play because, again, he could be one of your biggest play drivers on this power play, but yet they're going to other guys instead. Noah Cates gets a lot of power play time. He's not even a good power play guy. Why?
You're not
Give me.
wrong. You're
I'm
you're
just
not
saying, I
wrong,
just don't have
but
the
I'm
answers
talking
to this.
about different things. Like that's a left turn from the conversation I'm having.
I don't think it's a left turn with
Conversation I'm
Michkov because
having.
it's part of his game. If they're just talking about 5-on-5, then you're missing half of his game. He's going to be a big power play guy, but he can't be a big power play guy if they're just focusing on 5-on-5. So I don't think it took a left turn.
But I wasn't talking about the power play system. I was talking about specific things in his individual game and where he goes on the ice at different times in terms of what they're working on with him to get him to go north. That's what they're talking about. There's
Mhm.
been a lot of times where he is kind of reversed on the ice and he causes some offsides,
Mhm.
right? We've seen that from him.
That's fair.
He can't do that. And they're working on that specific thing with him right now, and how his skating patterns and getting to open ice and his passing choices and all of that to get him to go north. That's what they're working on with him
you
now.
do go north on the power
All
play
of the
too,
things,
and you do
I
position
understand that,
yourself
but
on that
all
too.
of the things that you're saying are true. I'm just saying that's not what they're working on with him at this very moment. And to Talkett's point, they're pulling things back and working on one thing at a time with him, with one coach at a time. I'm not saying it's been successful. I'm not saying there aren't other things that he needs to work on, and other things that the Flyers could benefit from with letting him be him in those ways. Exactly what you're saying. I'm just saying they're doing it in a particular way. I don't know if it's going to be ultimately successful to complete his game yet. We're not there, but this is what they're doing.
Okay.
So we'll see. Yeah. I mean, I just think there's an approach here. There's a logic here. We're going to see if they're right or not. I think it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I don't know. I don't know the answer yet. And it'll bear out whether or not Michkov's stats come up along with his complete game the way that they think it will. But it'll be really interesting to see. And he's going to have a tough challenge, like the Flyers will, against the Colorado Avalanche, who are just a behemoth in the league this year. I don't even know if they're beatable, but we're going to try and figure that out coming up next. Hockey season is well underway, and nothing beats being in the arena for these games. But let's be real, getting tickets can sometimes be a total headache between waiting in online queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on the Flyers. And that's where Gametime comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. One of my favorite features is you can see exactly what the view is going to look like before you buy your tickets with their in-app seat view feature. Their zone deals are also a game changer, where you pick the section, Gametime picks your seats, and you can save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. I recently used Gametime to grab seats for a concert. It couldn't have been simpler. I had great seats in minutes. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen of the day, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. On our Monday show, we will be back to recap this game against the Colorado Avalanche. Plus, we'll have our nemesis of the week and so much more. It was pointed out by Jackie Spiegel at the Rick Tocchet media availability yesterday that this will be Sean Couturier's 900th game in the NHL. And that is a pretty remarkable achievement. He is the 4th Philadelphia Flyers player all time to hit that mark with the Flyers.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I really, he's a guy, I liked him pre-draft. I was in the crowd in Minnesota waiting to get media availability with all the draftees, and all of a sudden, there was a trade, and I was like, I wonder which one of these guys this affects. So I made sure I did talk to Couturier. No, he's been a really good player. It's a shame what happened to him, and a shame that he's never gonna reach what his potential is, but he still is important to the franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. So really excited to see if they do anything to honor that milestone.
They might wait for 1,000. They'll give them. They'll wait another 100 games.
They'll mention it, and
they might
put up
mention it on
a
the
graphic up.
Yeah. They got to wait for that sterling silver stick that they like to give out.
Yeah. I can't believe it. They grow up so fast. Anyway, so the Colorado Avalanche, as we know, is the best team in the NHL right now. They are,
we'll say the world. They're the best team in the world.
Pretty much.
I don't know if there's another team in another league that can match them.
That is true. Now, they do have 2 games before facing the Flyers, one of which was last night against the New York Islanders. We don't know the outcome of that game. And then they are facing the New York Rangers on Saturday. So this is going to be the back half of a back-to-back for the Colorado Avalanche, 3 games in 4 days. That's a pretty tough schedule
It is.
for them. But, prior to all that, 19-1-6 overall with a 17-game point streak, only that one regulation loss all season long. That's just like unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. 9-0-1 in their last 10. That one was a shootout loss to the Minnesota Wild. This team just seems unbeatable.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's unbeatable, but the core, knows how to win. They've won. Jared Bednar is one of the better coaches that sometimes doesn't get credit for being one of the better coaches. I looked up some scoring. Nathan McKinnon is more than a point a game just on away games against the Flyers. So just in the Flyers building. Makar is just under a point a game against the Flyers. So it's not like they've ever shut them down. So you're not going to shut them down. But what you could hope to do, and I don't think putting them on the power play is the answer. I understand they might be in the middle of the league, but when you look at it, they still have 15 power play goals. There's like 4 teams tied with 7th, so it's not that bad.
That's the thing is that's the thing they're worst at overall,
Yes.
and they're still like middle of the pack in the league. They're not even in the bottom half of the league, right?
Yeah. And, listen, if Scott Wedgwood's not in there, he's their hotter goalie, but Mackenzie Blackwood's still pretty good. He's redeemed himself. So either way, it's a good goalie that you're facing. So
we should mention that. So Scott Wedgwood was injured in their most recent game on Tuesday against the Canucks. And so Blackwood finished that game for the Avalanche. Trent Miner was called up and is the backup, given the back-to-back. And honestly, between the Flyers and Rangers, I would normally, my default says, oh, they're going to put their top goalie in against the Rangers and not the Flyers. But that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, that may not be
this
the case.
year.
Right. That may not be the case. So, yeah, I can't predict what they're going to do in that situation. They might even play them back-to-back. Who knows?
Now we'll see if Wedgwood is healthy by that time. He's definitely not playing in the game that was last night.
Yeah.
But beyond that, we don't know. But we could see Wedgwood, we could see Blackwood, or we could see Miner. There's just no way to predict at this moment.
They're not a great defensive team, but they're a good puck possession, passing, puck moving team. Brent Burns has done really well for them. Again, he's ageless. It's just this guy keeps going. So you can't have the looseness that was out there in the Sabres game. Sabres players talked about it. There was a lot of ice for about a period and a half, all through the second, middle of the second, end of the third. They just didn't capitalize on it. This team would. So they have to play it differently. They're going to have to play it tighter to the vest. There was a point in the last game where it took 5 guys to get the puck up the ice for the Flyers. It was hard to even understand what they were doing. But if they do that against Colorado, it's going to be a problem. Even just on one shift, they're probably going to eat the puck on that. So they just have to play a very clean game, a very smart game. They do need better puck possession. The Flyers still lack puck possession, most of their line.
Yeah. They have had a tough time with that. And especially also to your point, getting the puck up the ice efficiently and quickly. That is something. And that's just something you have to do against this Avalanche team. I think, one of the other guys on that team that it's kind of upsetting that he's done so well there is Brock Nelson, because we have so much experience against him in his time with the Islanders. He was kind of one of those guys that always bit you when you played the Islanders, and now he's their 2C for the Colorado Avalanche, and he's having a very good season so far with 17 points in 26 games so far. Real good for him.
And face-off wise too.
Yeah. He does get to play with Landeskog. So there is that, but still, you have to be good on your own merits in order to keep up with Landeskog. So I think that is a line that I want to keep an eye on, and they're going to have to to defend the top 6 of this team is just going to be a slog. And so the Flyers are going to have two really solid lines to go up against them.
Yeah, this one's going to be interesting because, the home team, you can get away with some stuff. They used Trevor Zegras for like 7 faceoffs last game. He won 5. 2 of them I noticed were on the 5-on-3. I don't know if you could put him on offensive zone faceoffs against Colorado.
No.
I don't think it's a smart move. Against Buffalo, it's a different story. So we'll see how that goes and how they choose to do that. But as an example, Josh Norris was 69% on faceoff. So it's like the Flyers, like, they're better as far as getting these goals and waves, but they're not necessarily better at faceoffs. Now, Couturier had a good night in the
Yep.
dot, and he's always pretty good, but you don't want Couturier on the power play, and clearly they don't either. So it's like that's
Right.
where, the problem is. And if you put Noah Cates in against McKinnon, he's going to lose. So that's the matchup issue that you have to wonder what they're going to do. Like, you could put Obels in for a minute, let him do the faceoff, and take him off the ice. It's not the worst thing in the world, but they won't do that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting strategy, especially on the power play for who's taking those face-offs, to your
Correct.
point, because the Avs penalty kill is second in the NHL right now. So it's like, like I said, they're good at everything. So it's hard to
Yeah.
find the weak points
It
here.
is.
They're the top team in the league in terms of goals for per game and in terms of goals against per league. Like they can do it all. So
They could outscore problems. That's the issue. Like, even
Yeah.
Flyers do go up in this game by like 2 goals, they can come back easy.
Yeah, that is a huge part of it. And when you look at that, it just makes it an interesting challenge. And I think one of the things they're going to have to do is slow the Avs down somehow
Yeah.
and turn it into an East-West game and get physical. I certainly, like we talked about in the earlier segment, hope they put Grebenkin in this game and don't think that they need Delorier in there to try and
Right.
muck up the sauce.
No, I
But
think Grebenkin will be in there, but again, if they're going to masquerade him on the second line but play him 12 minutes, like, he's really not going to be second line all game, and that second line for them is a true second line. So if you're now going to play, I don't know,
Yeah.
like 5 forwards in
Yeah, they
order
can't mess
amount of
around with that.
minutes, I mean, you can maybe get away with it because they're playing 3 out of 4. That it might work. I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't think you can do that. I think you need some consistency, and you need a guy like Grebenkin in there
I
causing
think so
trouble.
because he holds
And
onto the puck. He's one of the few.
yeah, I think, and he's a guy that's gonna skate into areas you might not expect.
Yeah.
So I certainly hope they keep that line together and increase Gerbenkin's ice time, but it is going to be a doozy of a game, that is for sure. It starts the first of 4 remaining home games in this homestand before they go back on the road. And it is a tough slog, even though they are at home. We are going to get into those games and how the Flyers should approach it coming up next.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch's built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel free to control your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Hear that, Rachel? Monarch helps you notice an efficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs to help you save even more money. You can turn around and invest. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Locked On NHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code Locked On NHL.
All right. So after the Flyers face the Avalanche on Sunday, looking ahead to the rest of next week, we've got the San Jose Sharks on Tuesday. Then on Thursday, we have the Vegas Golden Knights, which has its own level of drama associated with it. And then on Saturday, we have the Carolina Hurricanes, and that is the first of a home and home against the Canes. So we play them 2 days in a row, first at home and then on Sunday on the road. That is the next batch of games that the Flyers have, and it gets pretty relentless schedule-wise leading up to the Christmas break here, as it does for everybody across the league here with the condensed schedule and everything due to the Olympics.
Right.
So I think, you look at, obviously we talked about the Avs. San Jose is a much better team than they were last year. And Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith are leading the charge there. And so it's not like a game where you can sit back at all.
No, I mean, Celebrini's a true impact guy. He's going to play 20 minutes. He has 40 points. Like at his age, to have 40 points, and he plays both ends of the ice. So somebody has to cover him for 20 minutes. So if it's Travis Sanheim, you shouldn't be using him in all the other areas of the game for that game, because otherwise he is going to get run ragged and he may end up playing like 27 minutes in a regular, in a non-overtime game.
Yeah.
So I think that's something you have to sort of strategize for. And if Cam York's not in there, they'll be at a disadvantage against them because of that top line.
Right. And, I think that they are a very fast team because they're younger and they're a little bit more wide open with their game, which does not necessarily match up against the Sharks pretty well. So I think that is a game that there could be a temptation to hold back a little bit, but they absolutely cannot do so there. Then we have the Vegas game on Thursday. And like we know, that's a changed team with Mitch Marner there. And they're just relentless, and they're a lot more physical. And so they could potentially drag you down.
Yeah, physically they're hard to handle. I think their defense is a little slow, so I don't think that part's a big deal. But the defensive part being big is, and now they're so much faster with Marner and Eichel. Like, it's a lot. And again, these are guys that you have to try and track on the ice all the time, and they're playing big minutes. They're playing 17 minutes a game, something like that. And so, yeah, it's a challenge. And yeah, this is one where you're going to kind of see where they're at against these Western teams, these two Western teams, and well, actually three because of Colorado. And you're going to see, like, because it is different hockey. And right now, the West is different than the East. I think they were closer last year, but I do see some differences this year for the top teams, not for, because they have some bad teams too. Like Nashville is one of the worst teams I've seen in a while.
Yeah. Now, I think with the Carolina Hurricanes, so you look at these teams, right? Colorado, number 1 in the league. Vegas is 10th in the league, and Carolina is, I believe, like 3rd right now. And so in terms of, they're either 3rd or 4th in the standings overall in the league. But I think, all teams in the top 10. Now the Flyers are also in that top 10. Like, Flyers point percentage wise, I think are 7th overall as of yesterday. So, the Flyers point wise are in this conversation, but in terms of where they are, like, it's a little tougher to say. But I do think Carolina is one of the more vulnerable teams right now. I think, they haven't been playing as good overall in terms of complete games, even though they are winning to some degree. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10. That's good. Is it as good as they've been in the past? Not as much. I think that is the team that is most vulnerable in this bunch.
Yeah, here's the interesting thing. The Freddie Anderson's lost, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, like his last 5 in a row, if he is a guy they think about using. But Brandon Bussey is their hot guy.
Right.
And this is like another weird story, but he's right now, he's won his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. So this is a thing. Like, if they have to face him, he might be a hot goalie that you're facing that, and they're not going to have much tape on Brandon Bussey. They're not.
No, that'll be a really interesting challenge. But given that there's a back-to-back, they're going to see Freddie Anderson for one of those 2 games. So there is that.
There is that. Unless Kochetkov goes in there, because he's having a really good year too. Like they've been using, I don't know if they're using 3 religiously. I haven't tracked it, but they've used 3.
Yeah, that is also true. But I just think with this remainder of the homestand here, the Flyers are going to have to be very deliberate. They're going to have to be extremely judicious about their ice time.
Yeah.
And when we talk about things like getting Grebenkin a solid actual second line minutes here, it's about rotating the lines through and making sure the lines are rotated through a little bit more evenly, just because this is going to be a huge grind over the next couple of weeks. And they're
Yeah.
going to have to manage it.
Yeah. I do want to point out that Bussy beat Winnipeg 5-1, and Seth Jarvis probably having his best year. Like, he's up to 14 goals. So
Sure. So then, but in terms of looking at the overall strategy of ice time management and strategy against these teams and having to pivot because they're very different styles of play
they're all
between
offensive,
all
though. That's
four.
basically kind
Yeah.
of what I'm getting at, is even Carolina has a little bit more on the ball offensively than they did. So, yeah, that's the thing. Their defense is going to be the key thing in all these games. All of them.
Yep. Yep. And that whole defense to offense thing, they're going to have to take advantage of
Yeah.
those rushes that they
Yeah.
get. And the Flyers have been very good on that
Yeah,
front.
lately they've been good on that.
So I think they're going to have to take advantage of those scoring chances they get on rushes because and utilize Trevor Zegras the way
Yeah.
that he has been. I think he's going to be key. I think
Mhm.
Cates is going to be key. Brink is going to have to step up, especially, with Forster being out. I think Travis Konechny is going to have to, maybe take this momentum
Yeah.
and get some additional scoring here. And yeah, I think it is going to be a very difficult challenge for the Flyers. I think they're up to it. I really
Mhm.
do. I think it'll just be a matter of execution and being disciplined defensively.
Yeah, I'm 50-50. We'll kind of see. I've seen the good and the bad in them this year. Lately, it's been a little more good, but we'll see.
Yeah, I do think we'll probably see Urson against San Jose and then one of the Carolina games, but we'll see how they play
Yeah.
that out. That will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. Like I said, we'll be back on Monday to recap the Avalanche game and give our new nemesis of the week. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got those mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. It's on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.